here's what Pastor MacArthur continues to say. Speaking, and these are my words first, speaking of Yeshua's selection of Matthew, the tax collector, as one of his disciples, right? So I'm kind of giving you a heads up on the kind of the context of the next notes from Pastor MacArthur. Here's what he has to say. The Pharisees then have concluded this just adds to their firmness in that conclusion that Jesus is espousing a religious view very different from theirs, or very different than theirs. Now again, Judaism is a religion of the Jewish people, or the Judaisms. We could even say it that way if you'd like to. In other words, there was more than one denomination of Judaism that was present in the first century, just like there's more than one denomination of Christianity that's present today. So, but we don't usually say Christianities, but in first century, we could really say the Judaisms. But given the fact that there were competing perspectives on messianic identity, messianic contenders, and things like that, when Yeshua hit the scene, he's going to have a lot in common with one of the groups known as the Pharisees, and he's going to have some major clashes with some of the other kind of denominations or sects of Judaism that were present during that time. And the Pharisees, remember, they're challenging him. Hey, along with John's disciples at this point in time, how come you guys aren't fasting? Right? What's the deal? You're not holding to the traditions that we hold dear. You're bucking the traditions. You're unnecessarily going against the grain. You're doing things radically different. And Pastor MacArthur sees this as a conclusion that Jesus is teaching or espousing a religious view that's radically different than theirs. And he goes on, he's going to flesh this out, so I don't need to get ahead of myself. He says, it's really important that we understand this particular fact about that this is a different religious view. Now, again, if we're simply talking about the kind of stereotypical, what Christianity describes as legalism in the first century, where they think that the Jewish people were keeping the Torah or keeping commandments for the express purpose of bringing about personal salvation or something to that effect, right? Works religion or works theology. Merit theology is the way Catholicism would describe it. If that's the difference that John MacArthur is trying to highlight between Jesus' religion and the religion of the Jewish people, then yes, that would be true, because we know in point in fact that Jesus is not an advocate of works-based righteousness where righteousness is equal to salvation. So Yeshua would certainly not agree that you can work your way into heaven. He would certainly not be in agreement that the commandments of Moses were to be utilized as a simplistic ladder or tool to earn your way into God's presence or into God's kingdom. That would be true. However, let's keep reading Pastor MacArthur and see if he's going to explain why I think that maybe he's being just a little too harsh with Judaism. I mean, this is in all fairness that Yeshua was the one in Matthew, I want to say it's chapter 23 or somewhere around there, where he just lambasts the scribes and the Pharisees, right? He just lays them bare. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, and he's making it plain that they are just absolutely missing the point of God's giving the commandments and God's sending the Messiah into the world to make a way for man to be found truly righteous. And the hypocrisy that was rampant in that day. I mean, there was legalism, but there's a different brand of legalism. It's only unique flavor. Let's see what Pastor MacArthur has to say. Maybe we'll get to the part that I'm really highlighting. Pastor MacArthur says, eventually they, speaking of the Pharisees and the Jewish leaders in that particular town and in that particular area, they eventually killed him for it. Right, and what are they killing him for? For his pointing out their hypocrisy, for his highlighting their sin, for his bringing to light their inconsistencies in their theology, for their rejection of him, for their elevating their own perspective above that of God himself. They weren't aware that that's what their perspective was. They thought they were doing God a favor by putting this supposed blasphemer to the stake, but they had him killed. They had him put away. They didn't like the charges that he was leveling against them, right? Hypocrisy. How dare you call us a hypocrite? You're the one who's got a demon. You're the one who's leading people astray, etc., etc.